So we've broken down some bigger possibilities for the Toronto Blue Jays, but what would the perfect offseason look like? And on the flip side of that, what's a realistic offseason look like for this Toronto Blue Jays team?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network. Your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. As always, welcome back. I'm Brayden. He's Carter First. Today, we're going to be chatting about the perfect offseason for the Toronto Blue Jays. Who would that be? What would it look like? Which are the positions of need? And then on the flip side of that, we got to talk about the realistic offseason. What will this group do? What are they targeting? You know, we can sit here and debate all we want about, should it be this guy or a lefty or a righty? Well, at the end of the day, that doesn't always matter what we think. It's what the organization is going to go out and do and what they're willing to spend. And I know we've had a lot of offseason conversations this week, but it's where we're at. Free agency's kicked off. Guys can start to sign whenever. So we might as well have those conversations now. You can follow us on Twitter, Brayden5 Carter First 2 as well on our main Twitter account at Locked On Jays as well. You can hit us up on Instagram or TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already here on YouTube. You guys can go and donate to the Movember page that we're running. Whatever you can is great. It's for a great cause. And you know, we're trying to do our part here. So appreciate if you guys can go into the description below, click that link, even if it's $2.50, even if it's $5, whatever it is, it's fantastic and it helps a lot. Carter, my man. We've each put down a few guys. We didn't really go into this with so many or whatever. You have to pick 4, you have to pick 5. It's sort of whatever it looks like for you. So I'll throw it over to you to kick things off here.
Yeah, I'm going to start this off by just kind of going into some positional needs. Because at the end of the day, like there's some guys that I like better than others. But honestly, whether it's, one of the top 3 guys, there's usually categories that I would be more okay with. There's a bunch of guys that I would have in my A tier, my B tier, my C tier, and so on. Just wanted to say it feels so much better that I can actually talk and breathe now. I had 4 days of just honestly going through hell. So it feels good to be back and actually in better spirits on the podcast. Again, apologies to anyone who had to, listen to my voice over the last 4 days. But we're fully back and we're ready to go. So I have my one positional needs, not actually a position, but it's Bichette or Kyle Tucker. You need one of the two. It's a failed offseason if you don't get one of these two players. We talked about which one we prefer. I have it such a slight edge to Bichette. Again, if it's Kyle Tucker, it's going to suck to see Bichette leaving, but you need one of those two guys. You need a middle of the order bat throughout this lineup. You need a guy that's going to get the pitch count up, a guy that's going to drive in runs and be a run producer, whether it is Kyle Tucker or Bichette. Again, I prefer Bichette just by a little bit, but if you get either of them, I'm going to be very happy. I actually throw up the idea of both.
Well, and that's part of it, right? We've seen them linked to both guys. There's already been reports out that the Toronto Blue Jays will be in on Bichette and Kyle Tucker. We've had a little bit of that conversation already, but I 100% agree with you, Carter. You need that bat. If you want to be a World Series contender once again, you need a guy in the middle of this lineup that can hit after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that scares teams as much as Vladdy can, right? That's the biggest thing. You need to throw around some protection, and if it's Bichette, if it's Tucker, if it's both, I'll be over the moon. I'll pop some champagne bottles if that's the case. But 100% agree with you, Carter. The next one for me, I think it is a debate. There are some people that 100% want another reliever and a high leverage reliever. In the case of Jeff Hoffman not being a closer this year, it's still up in the air a little bit. They're going to have to see who they bring in, who they don't. But for me, it's the starting pitching. I think you still need a starter. Again, one of those top-end guys would be fantastic, but even if you don't go and get a top-end starter, you need somebody to fill out this rotation because I don't know if I like to have my season hang in the balance of who knows what happens with Jose Berrios, Bowden, Francis, Eric Lauer, and then maybe a rookie in Ricky Tiedemann or Jake Bloss. So I'd much prefer them go out and get somebody if they're in win-now mode, which they 100% should be after this past season, Carter.
Yeah, I agree. I have the starting pitcher just slightly as well. Most of my reasoning is because it's a lot easier to trade for a bullpen arm at the trade deadline. And also, bullpen arms are fairly volatile. Like looking at a guy like Devin Williams, looking at just multiple guys, on the Toronto Blue Jays like Chad Green, who don't necessarily have the highest expectations, but bullpen arms can kind of fall off the face of the earth when you don't necessarily expect them. Whereas starting pitchers, you have a little bit more of a grasp of what you're going to get when you do sign a starting pitcher. And I kind of looked at this if they were only going to sign one. Again, they definitely should sign a starting pitcher and a bullpen arm, whether it's the top end guy, a lower end guy. They need to at least go and get one of each. But I was thinking throughout the season, what would the Toronto Blue Jays benefit more from, having one more starting pitcher or one more kind of just average bullpen arm? I kind of use the averages on both ends. And I think a starting pitcher, just to help out the starting rotation, to provide it a little bit more stability, would definitely be beneficial, because you're pretty confident in your top three guys. Like Trey Savage is going to be very good once again. Kevin Gausman maybe takes a little bit of a step back, but again, he'll definitely still be solid. Shane Bieber has something to prove on a 1-year deal. Jose Berrios maybe a little bit up in the air, but I'm still confident that he can at least eat you some innings and, be a fourth or fifth starter if that's the expectation for Jose Berrios. I think people are going to be fine with that. But in that fifth starting spot, I know Eric Lauer looked really good, but again, year-to-year baseball can change drastically. So I think they would benefit from a starting pitcher. That does not mean that I do not want them to go out and get a top-end bullpen arm, a guy that can compete with Jeff Hoffman, Jimmy Garcia in that closing role. I'd be over the moon if they got Edwin Diaz, Ranger Suarez, any of these guys that we're going to be talking about as the offseason progresses. But I think starting pitching just a little bit is ahead of the bullpen arms. But then that leads to the third, would definitely be a bullpen arm. You got to get at least one of each.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I guess we'll start here, Carter. We talked about the Bo Bichette and the Kyle Tucker of it all, but if there's one other position that you could go grab, I only have one guy on my list for right now that I would maybe could see. I'm saying this in the sense of they only get one of Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker. So for me, I put down Bo Bichette on my list. The second guy for me, and I know he was on we talked a little bit about this. He was on a little bit of your spare list, but for me, it's Harrison Bader, Carter. Just from he was a guy I was high on last year when we talked trades, we talk other things. Who could the Blue Jays bring in? He was a guy that has always been on my list. I like the game he plays. He can, you were sort of talked about it in the sense of like, hey, that takes away playing time from Miles Straw. You get a big upgrade there, and I really like that. And a guy that can play a solid, I think he's a great option, Carter. I don't know. I know he was on a little bit of your spare list. Is that just because you had somebody better, or because you were sort of iffy on Harrison Bader?
I just had somebody that I would prefer a little bit more. I think that would be an upgrade of Miles Straw. Again, it's not necessarily the Neil Turner that people would want to see, but it's a guy that can run the bases very well, very good defensively, fits that Toronto Blue Jays mold. Does have some swing and miss in his game. So again, this would be an fourth outfielder. He'd be one of those replacement guys. He wouldn't be a starter every single day. So surprised you would let off with Harrison Bader out of all people, but I figured that you would have him on your list. I just want to backtrack just quickly to just the last thing after my bullpen arms. Ideally, I want two bullpen arms. I want a higher leverage guy, a lower leverage guy. But I think what will happen is the Toronto Blue Jays will go out and sign that Harrison Bader type. Again, we'll talk about it in this episode. But I think they're going to either try to sign a third baseman. I mean, people love Alex Bregman. I don't know if he's going to come to the Toronto Blue Jays necessarily. That'd be absolutely hilarious, and I would love if Alex Bregman came. But a third baseman or that corner outfield spot. So you have Daulton Varsho staple at center field. Anthony Santander, unfortunately, has worked his way into a corner outfield spot, unless you want George Springer there, which can be a debate for the rest of the offseason. But you still kind of have that hole at left field. And assuming that Bo Bichette comes back, you have your second baseman, you have your shortstop. That does leave third baseman as a little bit of a staple. I don't think they go out and get an everyday guy necessarily, with a lot of the platooning that they like to do throughout this lineup, and just who are you going to take playing time away from? If you get a full-term guy, you get a guy that you're in love with, it better be that Alex Bregman. It better be a guy that's at the top of the food chain, because then you're taking at-bats away from guys like Addison Barger, Nathan Lucas, Ernie Clement, guys that have had very good seasons in 2025 and honestly have just continued to get better as they've played with the Toronto Blue Jays. But to kick mine off, I'll go with a little bit more of a bang here. And again, I have Ranger Suarez as my guy, but I just want this as a simple, they need a lefty in the starting rotation. I know they have Eric Lauer, and Ranger Suarez isn't going to blow you away with the velocity necessarily, but looking at this guy's career numbers, like a mid-threes ERA, has a whip of just over 1. He's done it 4 straight years in a row. You pretty much know what you're going to get out of Ranger Suarez, and he almost approaches at-bats similar to Chris Bassitt. He has 6 pitches, really uses the 5 of them, but really uses them like interchangeably. It doesn't necessarily have one pitch that he's using more than the other. Of course, he sets up with the sinker, but then he's able to go to multiple of his other secondaries and really keep the hitters guessing. Approaches at bats pretty much like it's a chess game. And that's a guy that I definitely want on this baseball club. Whether it's Framber Valdez, again, after that, those are kind of your 2 top lefties. Like Andrew Heaney's on the market, but I do not want Andrew Heaney pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays. So whether it's Valdez, Suarez, that would be my dream. I don't know if it happens. And if it's a righty, that's phenomenal. I'm not going to be too upset, but I would prefer it to be Ranger Suarez or Framber Valdez.
Yeah, I think me and you are in the same boat here. I had Valdez as mine. Again, it's not necessarily like a liking it better. It's just, who do I think is more likely to come here? I'm thinking Valdez, but it's sort of up in the air right now. I don't care. I think they need a lefty here, Carter. I don't think you can run a starting rotation. You can, of all righties, but I think that's playing with fire. Having a little bit of a lefty out of that rotation and being able to use him effectively, I think, is super ideal for this team. So for me, it was Valdez, but Suarez, whoever it was going to be, I'm good either way on either of those 2 guys. Will it happen? I'm sort of on the same boat as you. I don't know that this team can go out and pay Bichette, pay Tucker, pay Valdez, pay Suarez.
Like, yeah, they don't get all 3.
They can't get
if they get 2.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you got to take all this with a grain of salt. This is our perfect off season, right? This is our perfect free agency. If all the pieces fall as they could and money didn't matter, this would be a lot of it, Carter. But I wanted to move over a little bit to another guy I had, and that's a guy I know you really like, Carter, and that's Michael King. I would love to see him in a Blue Jays uniform. Again, this isn't one of those 100% top of the tier, but he's that next step down, right? He's still going to give you very consistent outings. He's going to be very solid. And really, you're asking him to be not a 1 or a 2. You're asking him to be a 3 or a 4 starting pitcher for this team, which to have Michael King as a 3 or a 4, I think we're all very, very happy about, Carter. So if that, he's like my consolation righty.
Michael King as a consolation righty is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I think if they sign Michael King, I think he's their number 1. I'll just flat out say it.
Think he's number 1 over Kevin Gausman and Trey Savage?
Well, again, Trey has pitched, as much as I love Trey Savage, he's pitched more playoff games than regular season games. As soon as he starts pitching more, I think he's still going to be very good, but I think the league will figure him out a little bit. Michael King is phenomenal. He had some injury concerns this past season. I just remember, like, every time I think about Michael King, I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2023, where he pitched twice in a week against the Toronto Blue Jays and just absolutely blew the doors off of their hitters every single time. I'm pretty sure it was 2023 because that offense was not very good. It was pretty much Davis Schneider who almost saved that season. Yeah. Obviously breaking those records. Had to throw that in for you. But last little bit, I wanted to backtrack one last time to just the starting pitching. And whether it's Framber Valdez, whether it's Ranger Suarez, the reason I picked those 2 guys is they are ground ball pitchers. They use their infield, they use their outfield. Again, mostly ground balls, infield, obviously. But Framber Valdez, a 59.4% ground ball percentage. That is 97th percentile. And then looking at Ranger Suarez, he is in the 76th percentile at 48%. So I think that fits the mold of the Toronto Blue Jays very well. But yeah, this time Michael King, I'm all in. Like, give me all of Michael King. Again, I prefer a lefty just a little bit more. And whether people are going to throw out Dylan Cease, maybe a guy like Zach Gallen.
Yeah.
If they get any of these top, Zach Gallen may not be in that tier list necessarily, but if you get any of these top tier starting pitchers, like, I'm not going to be like, oh man, I wanted Framber Valdez, I wanted Ranger Suarez. I'm going to be over the moon if they get one of these ace caliber type of starting pitchers.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the only reason I qualified Michael King as a consolation, by the way, is because I want a lefty. That's where again, if we're building our perfect offseason, it's getting a lefty into this rotation. But Michael King is great. I'm not as high on him as you. I don't know that he's this team's number 1. I think he's really good, but I think he may slot in as that 3 hole, depending on if Kevin Gausman can bring what we all know Kevin Gausman can bring. I think he's still that number 1 guy. How much longer is he that number 1 guy is probably a big question that's going to have to come in, when he finally departs this Toronto Blue Jays team. But again, Carter, a couple more guys I want to get into, but then talking about what an expected offseason looks like. We have to talk about that. We got to talk about relievers, closers, the whole ordeal with the Jeff Hoffman situation. So a lot more to come in this episode when we come back. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know how much I love FanDuel. They're my premier place to place my bets, and I've been getting really into the NBA again. I know I took a bunch of years off, but the betting side of things really helps. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. For me, I've been hammering overs on players, on teams, on everything, and I'm just sitting there watching buckets fall. I really like it. No baseball on right now. I'm a big hockey guy. I bet on hockey. I bet on NFL all the time. So I wanted to sort of expand myself, and I think that was the NBA. Now I'm starting to get back into it. Right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Doer. I know I've talked about Doer a ton as of late, and it's because I'm not a big clothes shopper. I don't go out and look for the perfect this and that. But when Doer popped up on my radar, I was really, really excited because I'm like, you know what? It's that little bit of a blend of the jean style, but it's also that relaxed feel and the relaxed fit. And that's what I really enjoy. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing jeans to work every day. It feels like I'm wearing comfortable clothes, and I really enjoy that. Doer combines classic jean wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. Best of both worlds, designed to look great and stay comfortable all day, no matter what you're doing. Doer are pioneers of blending technology, innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim. I also got this great shirt. I actually got to wear it on the Palmer these days. It's unbelievable. I don't know if it's the style, if it's the color, if it's the fit. I don't know what it all is, but it all comes together perfectly. And it's now one of my favorite shirts. And I never really am like, woo, a shirt, but this clothing is pretty fantastic. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Trust me, once you try these, they'll be your go-to, and you can check them out at the Doer store here in Toronto. It's at 44 Ossington Ave. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Mention the promo code Locked On Toronto in store to get 15% off your first order, or check them out online at duer.ca/Locked On Toronto for 15% off. That's duer.ca/Locked On Toronto. So, Carter, a lot to continue with here. I think we finish out our list. Then we'll talk about sort of what is more of an expected offseason for this Toronto Blue Jays team. So I'll kick it off to you. I've got 2 bullpen arms myself. I'm not sure how many you have, but I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, I got 2 arms as well. And I want to start this off by saying I would love Edwin Diaz, Ranger Suarez, Ryan Helsley, like any of these guys. I just don't think that the Toronto Blue Jays and the Toronto Blue Jays really haven't done this throughout the last few seasons. I don't think they're going to spend, 15 to 20 million per year on a bullpen arm, no matter how good or bad they are. Like Edwin Diaz, he's projected to get over $20 million AAV. As good as he is, again, I just don't think that is in the cards, at least for the Toronto Blue Jays. But if that happens, I'm going to be absolutely over the moon. So in this part of it, I started out kind of being a little bit heavy. Now I'm going to try to kind of reel it back in a little bit, be a little bit more realistic. And this is going to be a little bit of a controversial one, especially when people are looking for that top of the end closer, that guy that can compete with Jeff Hoffman, ideally take over the role from Jeff Hoffman, according to a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans. I'm not completely there yet, but I think Jeff Hoffman definitely needs a little bit more competition. Yimi Garcia will definitely help with that. But I have the Yankee bum, people that the Yankees did not like at all in 2025 because he was supposed to be their saving grace. And it's Devin Williams. Again, coming off of probably his worst season over the last 5, debatably the worst season of his career as soon as has been an established major leaguer. And you look at a lot of the underlying stats, and it's a little bit of a scary signing. And that's why I think people won't necessarily be on top of this one. But I'm not saying that they're going to go out and sign Devin Williams for $14 million a year. I'm hoping if they do sign Devin Williams, they get him for, 7, 8, 9 million, maybe a little bit of a discount because of the down year that he did have. One of the biggest reasons that Devin Williams kind of fell off the face of the earth is that his command kind of went all over the place. A guy that normally walks a fair amount of people, but a lot of the pitches, I couldn't find stats for this, but just watching Devin Williams, a lot of this, especially early on the count, just not competitive pitches that people are just simply not going to offer at. Still is getting the swing and miss, still is getting the whiff. Again, it's not up to necessarily his standards that has been previous. Just one stat I'll throw out there, had a 43.2 K rate in 2024, only a 34.7. It's still pretty good for a bullpen arm. But the changeup, Still a very good pitch. The fastball, again, when you don't command it initially early on in the zone, he's working from behind a lot of the time. And when he was getting back into the strike zone, a lot of the times it was right over the middle. A lot of the times it was sort of the Jeff Hoffman treatment that you were seeing a little bit from Devin Williams. So this is a guy that I still think has a lot in the tank. This is a guy that I think has something to prove once again. This guy's been one of the best closing pitchers in all of baseball over the last 3 seasons. The only thing, again, another thing that scares me a little bit is just the pitch mix. He's pretty much predominantly a fastball changeup guy. So again, we kind of saw with Jordan Romano, maybe a little bit of an unfair comparison, but if one of those pitches is off, he doesn't have the command on that changeup. The changeup isn't falling off the face of the earth like it's supposed to. If he's not looking at that fastball, does have a cutter as well, barely throws it. You can see how that could run into some trouble. But I think what the Blue Jays are going to try to do, and what Ross Atkins is going to try to do, is he's not going to get like that surefire, this guy is obviously the starter. I think he's just going to kind of crowd the room, give the Toronto Blue Jays a bunch of options. Again, bullpen arms are a little bit volatile, so we'll have to see kind of what works out. And hopefully if you have enough guys that could potentially be a closing pitcher, you hit on one of those guys.
Yeah, like you said, Carter, I would go out and I would love to say Diaz or Helsley. I think another guy that was high on my list in regards to trades. But here we are. And for me, I think I have to target lefties. For me, this is a massive hole on this team right now. Obviously, Brendan Little did not cut it. He will not cut it. And for a team that's trying to push into a World Series, or again, hopefully, they need a guy that they can somewhat rely on here coming up from the left side. And so I have a couple options here, and I'll sort of get your thoughts on them as well, Carter, because I didn't really toss this to you beforehand. A guy that maybe isn't on a whole lot of people's radars is Jalen Beeks off the Diamondbacks. Interesting lefty. He signed a minor league deal with the Astros, then ended up on the Diamondbacks and ended up having a really solid outing. It wasn't like, going to blow you away, but at the end of the day, he was doing the job from the left side. And I think this is a guy that the Blue Jays could bring in on a fairly cheap deal. And he may turn out great. He may not, but it's sort of one of those options that you could throw out there. And so I think he's really great, Carter. The other guy I had here, and I'm going to get a laugh here, but this is my MLB The Show mindset coming out. Hobie Milner, give him to me, baby. I want the slow throwing lefty, the ground ball machine, Hobie Milner. Again, I don't know how he plays here in Toronto. I don't know if he's going to be that lockdown lefty, but another lefty option there. Funky delivery. He's getting older, though. I think he's 35 right now, so it's getting to that point.
32.
But is he 32 only?
32.
Oh, Beeks is 32. I think Hobie's older than that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I thought you were
Hobie's
saying
35.
Yeah. I think you're right. Hobie is 35. Yeah. Sorry.
So I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. I don't think these aren't going to be long-term deals. They're going to be short for especially two guys like this, but two guys I could very well see Ross Atkins throwing in the mix here, Carter.
Yeah, see, I'm out on Hobie Milner. He just reminds me too much of Adam Simber. Like I just can't. Okay. I can't do that one. Jalen Beeks, a little bit of an intriguing game. Not necessarily one I thought about. That's probably more of your like lower leverage reliever, and then hopefully kind of can work up to being that middle to higher leverage guy. I think Brendan Little.
He stated as a medium right now is how they were using him, but they say he's got high end potential. So. We'll see. Yeah,
like some of the stuff, especially the off-speed stuff from Beeks, is definitely pretty intriguing for me. I think Brendan Little, as much as like he was horrible in the playoffs, I think like he gets a lot of disrespect for what he did throughout the entire season. Like this is a guy that made the most appearances out of any relief pitcher in the MLB. This is a guy that you relied on heavily May, June, July, and then after that, obviously we kind of saw what happened. But I agree. You can't have Brendan Little as your number one lefty. And I have a guy that you have some familiarization with because he was a Baltimore Oriole, has been within the division. Kind of the same idea. Well, lefty with the same thought process. This team needs another lefty, kind of the same idea with the starting pitching. But I have Danny Coulomb. I have a guy that doesn't necessarily throw gas, but a guy that has been effective and has been effective for a very long time. Again, isn't going to blow you away with the fastball velocity, but a guy that, again, is kind of a surgeon with it, really focuses on that command, and a guy that ages pretty well. A lot of these velo guys that as soon as they get to 34, 35, and they start to drop off with that velo, that's what they've relied on throughout their entire careers. They were chasing that velocity. And like what my offseason plan has really been underlying with Ranger Suarez, a guy that doesn't really throw that fast, and Danny Coulomb, a guy that doesn't necessarily throw that fast either. I want guys that can pitch effectively. I want guys that are pitchers and not throwers. And I think Danny Coulomb would fit this team very well.
Carter, I love that mindset. I've always been a pitcher over a thrower type of guy. I'm never a guy that looks at chasing the heat. Sometimes I do tend to go that way in regards to the bullpen. I think it's a very interesting conversation because Beek's a guy that throws, he'll throw 99, right? He'll be up there. He'll be chucking hard.
He can touch it. Like he's usually sitting like 95, 96, but
yeah, so he can get up there. But with some of these other guys, you are relying on more of the stuff, right? Even when I talk Hobie Milner, it's the stuff. It's not the, he's not blowing anybody's doors off throwing from his knees. So it's an interesting conversation, but I think we hit this out of the park. I like Danny, and I think that's a good option as well. But they need a lefty. I think that's something Ross Atkins will be targeting. Hopefully, not having to spend a ton of money is another one. I think he doesn't want to have to waste a ton on the bullpen because they do have some guys that can be really effective. So, in saying that, Carter, I think let's come back. Let's talk a little bit about what we actually expect from this Toronto Blue Jays organization to look at. I think we actually knocked it out of the park with the bullpen, but in regards to the starting pitching, in regards to some other guys joining this club, we'll take a quick break. Be right back. All right, my man. So now that we're back, I guess, right, we sit here and we can discuss this top guy. This guy would fit really well. But what do you actually think this organization is going to be looking at doing? Right? I was talking a few guys that I don't think necessarily they're going to be looking at bringing in another position player, not like a guy like Harrison Bader. I could see them not going out and making that move, and it be, hey, Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker, one of those two, and that's it. Like that might be all the addition, maybe some other just sprinkle in pieces. But for bigger names, I think that might honestly be it for this organization.
I think positional player wise, like we've seen throughout this organization that they are not afraid to go out and sign starting pitching. And there's a lot of guys that you got to like on the market. Again, we can go over a few of them. I guess I'll just completely list them off here. Like guys that I would be okay with getting. Dylan Cease, obviously. Like I'll just kind of breeze through these ones. Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez. If Chris Bassitt comes back, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. Shota Imanaga, Michael King, Zach Gallen, a little bit more on the fence of that one. But Adrian Hauser, a guy that absolutely dominated the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think that would be necessarily a bad signing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the top of the end guy. You can definitely get some value with a lot of these guys that aren't necessarily, going at this premium. Like Brandon Woodruff is another guy that they could be looking at as well. Tyler Mahle, like there's a few guys that I would be okay with the Toronto Blue Jays getting here, but I think that they're really all in on Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker. I'm going to throw it out there. I'd be surprised if they don't get signed one of these guys with how aggressive that they have been previously. This feels like the front office is almost getting frustrated a little bit. They've been so close so many times on so many different free agents that I think they finally want to get their guy. I mean, ideally, they get both of them, Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette. Oh my goodness, that lineup would be absolutely phenomenal. But if you bring Bo Bichette back and you don't do anything else, like you want to get better every single year. And if not adding to this lineup, not adding to the depth of this team, you're relying on a lot from guys that you did get a lot from in 2025, but how much can they replicate that? I mean, we talk about Nathan Lucas, Ernie Clement, as good as he was, the playoff expectations now, what he did in the playoffs. I think people, as much as I love Ernie Clement, are expecting a little bit too much from what Ernie Clement actually is as a baseball player. Not saying that he's bad, but I'm saying that he's not going to hit 400 in the regular season like some people are thinking for some reason. But I think they're going to add at some point. Like I had Lane Thomas as a guy they might be looking at, like a guy that did not have a very good year last year. They're not going to go out and sign, I don't think, like a guy for like 15, 20 million. It's either going to be the Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker, massive fish, or they're going to go out and just try to get some value. Maybe a guy that had a down year, maybe a guy that they like some of the underlying numbers of. Again, for me, whenever we do this, it's always the most random guy that I never expect whatsoever. Like I didn't have the Toronto Blue Jays trade for Andres Gimenez. It made sense, like looking back at it with the profile, but that was a little bit out of left field for me. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were going to add positionally, if it's not Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker. I think what they might do is they might try to get a little bit of value within a trade. They might go and try to get a bullpen arm, and then maybe like that Ty France caliber, something like that. It's not necessarily, going to change this team forever, but for a guy that can definitely come in and contribute.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And we're going to have a trade episode where we, can bring a few options to the table. We're never right with these things. I mean, we can all throw at trades all we want, but Ross Atkins has to do his part. And whoever he's talking to has to agree to that. This is not this looks good on paper, so put it through. That's not how it works. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, Carter. I think you're bang on, though, when you're talking about either the big fish or just a couple additional pieces, because that's 100% where I'm at here as well. It's going to be a crazy offseason, a lot more to come, not only from us, but hopefully from this Toronto Blue Jays team And a lot more to talk about. Carter, I wanted to throw this in here since we got a couple extra minutes here. John Schneider does not win AL Manager of the Year, sadly enough. For those of you who care, to me, yeah, it's not great. I think a couple of the Blue Jays got snubbed from a couple of awards this year, but I don't really care personally that much.
Yeah, like it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me when Stephen Vogt. I get they went on that massive run at the end of the year, but they lost more games this year than they did last year and kind of got gifted the division. I don't want to take anything away from what the Guardians did. They went on a crazy run that we don't see very often. The Detroit Tigers played horrible down the stretch. Yeah. And again, when you're looking at John Schneider, a team that had 74 wins the year before, and all these things have come out about, oh, how close this clubhouse is. You don't think the manager is probably at the head of that, or at least has a big part in that. So I thought that was a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I thought Alejandro Kirk not winning a Gold Glove was absolutely insane. Ernie Clement utility probably should have happened as well. There's a bunch of them. If like Andres Gimenez maybe plays a little bit more, he gets that second base Gold Glove. Daulton Varsho in center field. Like you really look across the diamond and see that the Toronto Blue Jays got snubbed in a couple of areas, to say the least. The last thing I just wanted to end with is that, what do you think the Toronto Blue Jays, like how many players do you think they're going to sign? Like for me, what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to get a starting pitcher. I'm not sure if that's a high-end guy, a middle-end guy. I think they're going to add to a starting pitcher. I think they're only going to get one bullpen arm. I think they should get two, but I think they're only going to get one. And they might get one more if there is a trade. That's how I think they'll get a position player and then probably one more bullpen arm as well. But no matter what, you got to get Bichette or Kyle Tucker. You got to get a starting pitcher, and you got to add at minimum one bullpen arm.
Yeah, it's three players for me, Carter. It's a starting pitcher, it's a bullpen arm, and it's either Bichette or Kyle Tucker. Again, both would be great, but try to be a little bit realistic. I think it's almost even crazy to assume that we're getting one of those guys is crazy. But, you know, you want to bring back Bichette. I think everybody in the world thinks that Bichette will be a Toronto Blue Jay once again. Again, that depends on money and different offers. But, yeah, three, Carter.
Cool.
I do believe there will be some trades. That's just typical Ross Atkins to make a few offseason moves that, may not be the biggest piece of the puzzle, but will definitely add some interesting spice to this roster.
Well, let's be honest here. Like, you're 2 outs away from winning a World Series. If you don't resign Bichette and you don't get Kyle Tucker, how is your lineup supposed to get better?
Yeah,
unless you're going to add, a bunch of different guys throughout free agency. For how close you were and for how aggressive this team has been previously, you got the taste of it. Why would you not want to go out and be aggressive? So I think a lot of fans would say that this is probably a failed offseason, unless, they get Dylan Cease and Ranger Suarez, and this starting pitching is absolutely phenomenal. Then maybe, it'd be a little bit easier to swallow. But I think it's pretty much a big fail if you don't get Tucker, you don't get Bichette, you don't get that staple that you do need throughout this batting order.
Yeah, Carter, I'll be interested to see what sort of opt-outs look like in different contracts as we go through this free agency.
Contracts are even more impossible to predict. I think the only one we've gotten right is the Anthony Santander, and that was you, not even me. So
yeah, I'll take that. I like that a lot. But
Scherzer actually coming to the Blue Jays. Yeah, nobody had that, let's be honest.
Yeah, there you go. As always, guys, appreciate you tuning into the episode. Stick with us next week. A lot more to break down, a lot of off-season coverage coming from us every single day, Monday to Friday. And have a good weekend.